It is now confirmed the National Guard will be deployed to the Washington, D.C. area over fears around the U.S. Freedom Convoy protest and the State of the Union address. Now, there's a lot of conflicting information coming out about the Freedom Convoy. There's a ton of different maps. We don't know exactly what route the truckers will be taking. In fact, it may actually be that there's like 4 or 5 different U.S. Freedom Convoy protests, because we're hearing a ton of conflicting information, but it may not be conflicting information. It, in fact, may be complementary information. That when one group says they're leaving from Barstow, when one group says they're leaving from Central California, one says they're leaving from LA, it may actually be a bunch of different groups. Now, there's a ton of information coming out. The U.S. Freedom Convoy, at least one of them, has raised over $300,000 already for their protest, but they're not expecting to be in D.C. until March 5th. Now, there's been reports that the convoy would make it to D.C. just in time for Joe Biden's State of the Union. The information we have on at least one convoy suggests that isn't the case, but certainly D.C. is panicking. Not only are the National Guard troops being deployed in D.C., but previous reporting from timcast.com, the activation of the D.C. National Guard would be the first use of a new law created after the January 6th Capitol riots. And that's where things are starting to get spicy, I suppose. Now, look, the Ottawa protests, the Freedom Convoy up there, extremely effective. You saw they were forced, the establishment elites, to rip the mask off and stomp the boot down in regular working people. It was so extreme that even leftists and establishment activists or establishment elites were shocked. Now, of course, let's be real. Most Democrats actually supported what Trudeau has done. And that's horrifying. There's a viral tweet going around that says that liberal friend of yours who supported Trudeau is not a friend to you, but a direct and imminent threat. Now, that kind of language is disconcerting. Well, calm down, hold on there a minute. I see your point. And it is scary because when you're, we'll put it this way. You're standing in the street with your liberal friend, and a man like Trudeau steps up and says, I am going to start freezing bank accounts. I am going to start detaining people and denying them bail and stealing from them. And you say, you know what? It's too bad for you, mister. The two of us right here, we ain't going to allow it. We oppose you. And because we are the majority, there's nothing you can do about it. But then your friend turns to you and says, actually, no, we're the majority. You're the minority. Your liberal friend next to you says, I agree with him. And then he fans him over. The guy comes and takes your stuff. That's the real danger. That's about 45%. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's probably wrong. But it's 35% of people in this country agree with what Trudeau has done. It's fascism. I hate to use the word fascism because it's a new era. It's something different. The technology is there. It's not necessarily communism. It is this global elitist authoritarianism. Needs a new word. I don't know. Some people have funny names for it, but there you go. I want to show you this first. The U.S. Trucker Convoy is raising over $300,000 ahead of Wednesday's departure, and then go get into what's going on with the National Guard and why Democratic voters are freaking out and why they would support something like this. So first, some context on the convoy. A people's convoy of American truckers heading from California to D.C. has already raised over $300,000 ahead of their departure on Wednesday. The group, who are protesting COVID-19 restrictions, is raising money through the American Foundation for Civil Liberties and Freedom, and said that they had raised $311,362 as of Monday morning. According to a press release obtained by Timcast, the People's Convoy will be meeting at the Adelanto Stadium in Southern California at 10 a.m. local time. The truckers and blue-collar workers of the United States will be joined by freedom-loving supporters from all walks of life, frontline doctors, lawyers, first responders, former military servicemen and women, students, retirees, mothers, fathers, and children on this peaceful and law-abiding transcontinental journey toward the East Coast. The truckers encourage one and all to come out to the stadium in the heart of Adelanto, California, to wish them well see them off, and join them in their journey. The group added, "This convoy is about freedom and unity. The truckers are riding unified across party and state lines, and with people of all color and creeds. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Sikhs, Mormons, agnostics, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans, Republican, Democrats. All individuals are welcome to participate by either attending the launch gathering at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, February 23rd at Adelanto Stadium." So that's today in a few hours, or a few hours from the recording of this segment, or by getting their own vehicles and following the big rigs from Adelanto toward the East Coast. Their objective, according to the statement, is to demand the country be reopened. To that end, it's time for elected officials to work with blue-collar and white-collar workers of America and restore accountability and liberty by lifting all mandates and ending the state of emergency, as COVID is well in hand now, and Americans need to get back to work in a free and unrestricted manner. I think it's going to work. I do. First, a lot of the mandates are already being removed, right? We had this funny situation here in Frederick County, Maryland, where, this is hilarious, they implement a mask mandate for like 1 month. And there's no reason they did it. They just announced, oh, we're doing the mask mandate again. And it's like, why? And they're like, oh, it's winter and we're worried. And then cases went down and they're like, okay, we're going to remove the mask mandate now. And so a lot of people responded with like, well, maybe the mask stopped it. And it's like, cases were going down. They've been going down everywhere. No, it was a bunch of morons in some stupid local government being like, let's just do it. And no one listened. This is the important part. They implemented the mask mandate. Nobody abided by it. So they kind of just, with their tail between their legs, it's like, okay, take it down. It didn't work. Nobody's listening anymore. You have open and active defiance. So I think the remainder of these mandates, I think, will be greatly impacted by this, but we'll see. I mean, even in DC, they've already gotten rid of their vax mandate. So it seems like this is more of a victory parade than an actual protest, to be completely honest. They say, along with the statement, the group released their tentative routes for others who wish to join along the way. The People's Convoy route is listed as follows. So here we go. Now, look, there's a lot of conflicting information here. It's really hard to know exactly what's going on with this. On day one, they're at Adelanto Stadium in California. They're going to arrive in Kingsman, Arizona, day 2. Lupton, Arizona, day 3. They're going to depart from Glen Rio, Texas, day 4. Depart from Elk City, Oklahoma, day 5. Depart Veneta, Oklahoma, day 6. Depart Sullivan, Missouri, March 1st. Depart Indianapolis on March 2nd. And then, what does it say? Oh, they're going to stay. They're going to stay in Indianapolis for an extra day, it appears. And then there'll be so on March 3rd, they'll still be in Indianapolis. And then March 4th, Cambridge, Ohio, where they will be arriving in Hagerstown, Maryland for an overnight stay. And then on Saturday, March 5th, they will be departing Hagerstown to head for the DC Beltway. So we're actually really, really close to Hagerstown, and not super close. I think it's like a half an hour, 40 minutes away. So we're really excited to see what happens with this. We're trying to get a reporter on the ground to embed. Not an easy task considering the conflicting information and the costs, but we're working on it, so that should be really interesting. Now, once they arrive in DC, you've got the Capitol Police calling for National Guard, and they are being deployed. Just really quickly, though, Rasmussen reports posted a poll. Would you support a U.S.-based trucker convoy protest? Yes, 54%. No, 38%. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think we'll see something particularly unique here in D.C. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The National Guard is terrified. I shouldn't say the National Guard is terrified. The D.C. establishment elites, they're terrified that these truckers are going to choke out 43 specific points and shut down the Beltway. It's possible. The Guardian reports National Guard troops to be deployed in D.C. as trucker convoy protests loom. The Pentagon is expected to approve the deployment of 700 to 800 unarmed National Guard troops to the nation's capital, a U.S. official said on Tuesday, in the face of trucker convoys that are planning protests against pandemic restrictions beginning next week. The District of Columbia government and the U.S. Capitol Police are requesting the National Guard assistance. The troops would be used largely to help control traffic and are expected to come from the district's National Guard and 3 states, said the official, who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss aid not yet formally approved. Modeled after the Canadian protests, as we understand. John Kirby, the Pentagon press secretary, said the D.C. government and Capitol Police had requested National Guard personnel to provide support at traffic control points in and around the district and stay ready in case of possible disruptions at key traffic arteries. He too said no formal decision on the request has been made. Now, I got to pause there already because we've got anonymous sources. Fox News has already reported that according to sources, they are going to be deploying National Guard. And the fascinating thing here is it's the first use of a law created after January 6th. So this article from dimcast.com talks about the potential for the release of the National Guard, the deployment, sorry. If activated, the Guard would provide vehicles and personnel at 43 critical blocking positions 24/7, according to the Military Times. Law enforcement agencies around D.C. have received reports of a potential truck convoy planning to block roads in major metropolitan cities in the U.S. So here's where it gets interesting. Apparently, their fear is it's not just D.C., that these truckers, they're going to be coming and staying in these cities, shutting down each of these cities effectively overnight. And that's about it. Now, interestingly, it looks like the truckers have decided they're going to arrive in Indianapolis on the evening of March 1st. It says, depart Indianapolis area, pause for rest in Indianapolis for an overnight stay. I wonder if that's a typo. I don't think it is. It looks like they're planning on staying an extra day in Indianapolis. So perhaps there's going to be these jam ups, these occupations in all of these cities. I wonder if these cities are chosen specifically because of some kind of mandate or otherwise. Now, TimCast.com reports, the USCP is closely coordinating with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, including DC's Metropolitan Police Department, the United States Park Police, the United States Secret Service, and other allied agencies to include the DC National Guard. If the National Guard is activated, it would be one of the first uses of a new law to ease requests for emergency assistance from the National Guard. The new law was enacted following the January 6 Capitol riots. Fascinating. They won't deploy the National Guard. Actually, there's a funny tweet. They said, I think I could pull it up, actually. Let me see if I can get this one. This is the Daily Mail, and they highlight this tweet here. Gail Trotter says, I suspect DC Mayor Muriel Bowser isn't going to authorize a Freedom Convoy Plaza anytime soon. Yeah. Because we're two different countries at this point. It's not even a question. In DC, when Black Lives Matter says we protest, they say we're going to rename the street after you. I mean, look, the cities, they're gone. They are no longer part of the constitutional republic. They've been usurped. They've been conquered. And it was fast and kind of scary. Look, I lived 5 years ago. I could tell you that people in cities 6 years ago, I can tell you that they were mostly liberal Americans. But something happened over the past 10 years that rapidly changed things, escalated the shift, and now we have a multicultural democracy versus a constitutional republic. The United States has always been a constitutional republic with democratic institutions. When our presidents and leaders said we would export democracy or things like that, they're referring to the democratic institutions. Our system of governance has always been a constitutional republic. But now we have something else. People who are marching in lockstep with the majority, regardless of what is right or wrong. And it is evil. It has always been evil. Democracy is, direct democracy, this idea, is just a lie. Now they'll tell you, yeah, but as long as you can protect the minority groups, that's just not what they're doing. These people in these big cities are stripping the rights away from minority groups. I mean, look at what they do to conservatives, right? The Republican Party is the minority political party, right? So what do you get? Well, if you protest, they put you in solitary confinement. If the majority party, the Democrats, protest, they get the red carpet rolled out. Now, in reality, the Democrats aren't the majority of this country. It's just of the two political parties, the Democratic Party is bigger. And when they take institutional power, they exploit it to an extreme degree, and Republicans do nothing about it because Republicans are pathetic, spineless cowards. Except for a small handful of people like Thomas Massie or Rand Paul, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. They exist for sure. Josh Hawley does a pretty good job. Ted Cruz, I'll give him a C+. He's not the best. But there are some Republicans. For the most part, the Republican Party, what is it? The Democratic Party is the party of bad ideas. The Republican Party is the party of no ideas. That's what they say, isn't it? I wonder why this is. Exclusive poll. Majority of Democrats back Trudeau's crackdown, freezing bank accounts of truckers. It's a scary prospect. A poll from Trafalgar Group shows 65% of Democrats approve of what Trudeau has done. I mean, they're talking about stealing people's rigs and selling them because they engaged in a peaceful protest. And there are people who support that. They're evil people. You know, look, there really is good and evil. And when I was younger, I very much believed, I had an interesting view on all this when I was younger. I thought to myself, if you know, I see these movies and these tropes of, you know, ancient times, and someone would be like, convert to my religion or perish. And the guy would be like, I will never reject my God or whatever. And I was like, that's crazy. Just lie. You could just say words and live. Why wouldn't you? And I thought about, you know, and then as I got older and I started seeing what was going on, I'm like, now I get it. Now I understand why people will not abide by it. They will not agree to it. And now I understand, you know, I understand a lot better that compromising with evil is evil. So, you know, when I was younger, I thought there's no good and evil. There's just subjective moralities. And that's technically true. But then I started to have, you know, as I started to read more and learn more and better understand the world, what life is, what life does, what we do as humans, what humans universally tolerate. I said, you know what? There actually is universal morality. And I think when I was younger, I didn't understand it. But you know, I'd read about ancient Greece and the horrifying things they did. And I'd be like, so how can that be good or evil if people used to do it and it was considered good? Well, no. There really is universal morality. The issue, I suppose, is that it's not 100%. You know, the morals people hold are a mixture of subjective values and universal absolutes, as it were. Absolute probably is not the right word because it is an absolute. But, you know, look, just because there are murderers and serial killers doesn't mean that people tolerate murder. They don't. Most people anywhere in the world do not tolerate murder. And when you realize that, you say, okay, well, there is something to this. There is something deeply intrinsic within humans that says this practice is bad. Now, what I would say is we then get into the nitty-gritty of different kinds of murder. So in the instance of walking up to a random person, or let's say this, a child, right? I do not believe there would be there's any culture where a child is playing and abiding, like just minding their own business, and someone comes up and murders that child. Murders. Every society would be like, okay, that was wrong. Now, hold on there a minute. I understand there's ritual sacrifice in some cultures. I think that's evil. I think that if you have 98.7% of people being like, you've killed a child for no reason, yeah, that's, you know, something universal to humans. The way I see it is there are certain types of, you know, actions that are universally considered wrong, but there's deviations. There's human developmental error, right? So if someone's got a brain issue and they're whacked out, well, that's not the human experience, right? That being said, there is something to say about whether or not it's truly universal morality or not. I just think that for the most part, humans typically agree on a handful of things, no matter where they come from. And that those things are related to being alive. Of course, then there's other questions about taking someone else's rights or trampling them. The left doesn't think they're evil. They think they're the good guys. But I believe that acting in a way that is detrimental to the human experience, that seeks to create, protect, and flourish, develop and innovate and explore, I think these things, for the most part, are evil. I know there's a lot of nuance to get into. So when I look at what Trudeau is doing, you have a regular person driving a truck, and he says, I do not believe you have the right to steal from us, to destroy our lives like you did. They have used they've abused their power to shut down businesses and destroy lives, to force people to be injected. It's evil. It's outright evil. Individual choice matters. Otherwise, what are we but slaves? And so they protest. So Trudeau destroys their lives further. Evil. You take a look at the Democratic voter who support this. You know what I think this is? I think it's the banality of evil. Why? I don't think these people know at all. I don't think they know anything about what's going on. From timcast.com, Gallup Poll shows Democrats tuning out news coverage during Biden presidency. So let me actually pull up the Axios graph here. And you can see right here, percentage of Americans who pay a great deal of attention to the news by political affiliation. Democrats have stopped paying attention as of what? September of last year. So what does that mean? These people who support Trudeau don't even know what he's doing. They don't know about the bank accounts. They don't know about the single mother who donated $50. The truckers were driving down the road. Nothing about it was illegal. She gave them $50. Then it became an occupation. They froze her bank accounts. Evil. These people don't know that. That's no excuse. There is no excuse. If you actively support a fascist, dictator, authoritarian, anybody, or Trudeau, if you actively support people like him, you're complicit. Take some responsibility for your actions. You are the one providing your support, and your ignorance is no excuse for what you have done. And that's where we are. Now, I hope things remain peaceful, and I think they will be. I think these truckers have tact, and I think they know what they're doing. So it should be interesting to see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.